Agnes had always lived with a hidden bitterness, one that no one seemed to understand. On the outside, she was the devoted wife to Peter, a hard-working man with a deep love for his family. But Agnes' heart was a different story. She had a daughter, Jennifer, whom she adored. But Rose, Peter's daughter from his first wife, was another matter entirely. Rose was everything that Agnes wasn't: kind, respectful, and loved by everyone she met. The young woman, at just 25 years old, had grown up in the shadow of her mother's death, losing her mother when she was just a newborn. Yet, Rose had blossomed into a beautiful, intelligent, and charming young woman. Her father, Peter, was proud of her beyond measure, and it was no surprise to anyone that he treated her with the utmost care, always making sure she had what she needed. Agnes, however, had never quite been able to accept Rose as her own. She resented the fact that Peter loved her daughter so much, and it stung even more that Rose had never done anything to earn this animosity. Rose was a brilliant medical student, spending her days on an internship in one of the city's top hospitals. Her kindness extended to everyone around her, from her colleagues to the patients she treated. Even in her darkest moments, Rose had an unmatched strength, something that Agnes could never understand. Jennifer, on the other hand, was a different story. At 23, she had everything that Rose didn't: a sharp tongue, a quick temper, and an attitude that had alienated many. Agnes never had to worry about Jennifer. Her daughter was rude, dismissive, and always felt entitled. Where Rose was adored, Jennifer was scorned. But that never seemed to bother Agnes, who often turned a blind eye to Jennifer's faults while fanning the flames of hatred toward Rose. One day, a powerful change occurred. Rose met Dr. Stanley, a highly respected billionaire doctor who specialized in cutting-edge medical treatments. Their meeting was entirely by chance, as Stanley had been seeking advice from Rose's hospital, and Rose had been assigned to his case. There was something about Rose's calm demeanor and brilliance that captivated Stanley. He was used to dealing with professionals, but Rose's heart, her compassion, and her natural beauty were unlike anything he had ever encountered. Stanley pursued her, and their relationship blossomed quickly. His love for Rose grew deeper with every passing day. Soon, he knew he wanted to marry her. The couple's connection was undeniable, and Rose was swept off her feet by the love and respect Stanley showed her. She had never experienced such tenderness in her life. But this was where Agnes' jealousy reached a boiling point. She watched as Stanley, the kind and incredibly wealthy man, courted Rose. Agnes saw in him a ticket to everything she had ever dreamed of: a life of luxury, power, and prestige. The problem was, Stanley wasn't interested in Jennifer, Agnes' only other option for a wealthy marriage. Rose had captured his heart, and there was no way Agnes would allow that to happen. One evening, Agnes confronted her husband Peter. She spoke in hushed tones, her voice a mixture of fury and desperation. "Peter, you can't possibly let Rose marry that man. He's too good for her. She's nothing more than a spoiled girl. Jennifer, she's the one who deserves him, not Rose." Peter looked at his wife in confusion. He couldn't understand what she meant. "Agnes, what are you saying? Rose is brilliant. She's kind-hearted. She's exactly the woman Stanley needs." "No," Agnes snapped, her tone icy. "You don't see it. Rose is going to ruin everything we've worked for. You've always put her on a pedestal. But she's not good enough for a man like Stanley. Jennifer, she's the one. She can do better." Peter's face grew dark, his brow furrowing. "I won't stand for this. Rose is my daughter, Agnes. I love her, and I won't let you do this." But Agnes had already made up her mind. If she couldn't get Stanley to fall in love with Jennifer, she would take matters into her own hands. In the dead of night, Agnes sought the help of a powerful native doctor. She had heard of an old chief priestess, a woman with ancient powers who could change the fate of anyone. Desperate and full of rage, Agnes went to the priestess, hoping to find a way to destroy Rose's beauty and charm, hoping to make Stanley lose interest in her. The chief priestess listened to Agnes' plea, her ancient eyes narrowing with understanding. "You want me to make Rose ugly, or mad? You wish to take away her shine, her brilliance?" the priestess asked. "Yes," Agnes said, her voice trembling with a mix of greed and anger. "I want her to be someone Stanley will never want. I want him to look at Jennifer instead. Please, do whatever it takes. The priestess nodded slowly, her voice soft and ominous. I will grant your wish. But remember, magic comes with a price. You may not be able to control what happens after. Agnes didn't care about the price. She was willing to sacrifice anything to get what she wanted. The priestess handed Agnes a vial of dark liquid, instructing her to pour it into Rose's food or drink. It will take time, the priestess warned. But soon, Stanley will lose interest. Agnes returned home, her heart racing with excitement and fear. She knew she was playing with dangerous forces, but her jealousy had overtaken her common sense. She waited for the right moment to strike. Meanwhile, Rose continued with her internship, unaware of the storm brewing around her. Her love for Stanley grew stronger, and she believed in their future together. But little did she know, her stepmother's hatred was slowly beginning to destroy her. The next day, Agnes made her move. She secretly mixed the liquid from the vial into Rose's dinner, watching with a dark satisfaction as the dish was served. She had no idea what would happen next, but she believed with all her heart that this was the only way to get what she wanted. As Rose took a bite, she felt an odd sensation settle in her stomach. It was as if something had changed, but she couldn't quite place it. She shrugged it off, thinking it was just exhaustion from her long hours at the hospital. But little did she know, the magic was beginning to work, and the journey of deception, heartbreak, and twisted love had only just begun. Rose woke up the next morning feeling strangely disoriented. Her head throbbed as she sat up, and a lingering nausea swirled in her stomach. She thought maybe it was the late night of studying, or perhaps the pressure of her internship taking its toll. After all, she had been working non-stop, trying to prove herself in a demanding field. But something felt different, something in the air around her felt heavier, more oppressive. As she stepped out of bed and headed to the bathroom, she caught a glimpse of herself in the mirror. Her reflection startled her. There was a dullness in her eyes, as if the light inside her had flickered and dimmed overnight. Her skin, usually radiant and glowing, appeared a little sallow. She shook her head, trying to shake off the odd feeling. Maybe I need more sleep, Rose muttered to herself. But no matter how much she tried to ignore it, the feeling lingered throughout the day. Her once sharp mind felt foggy, and her confidence, which had always been her strength, seemed to slip through her fingers like sand. At the hospital, her colleagues noticed it too. They exchanged concerned glances as Rose struggled to keep her focus during rounds. Her supervisor pulled her aside. Rose, are you feeling all right? You don't seem like yourself today. I'm fine, Rose replied with a weak smile, though deep inside, she felt like she was losing control of her own body. Just a little tired. But deep down, Rose knew something was wrong. She couldn't explain it, but everything around her felt distorted, as if she was living in a world that didn't quite make sense. Meanwhile, Agnes watched from a distance with growing satisfaction. The dark liquid she had mixed into Rose's food had begun to take effect. She could already see the changes. Rose's once radiant glow was fading, her once sharp intellect seeming duller by the hour. Agnes couldn't help but feel a twisted sense of triumph. Stanley would never look at Rose the same way now. Agnes, however, wasn't the only one who noticed the shift. Jennifer, who had always seen her stepsister as a threat, began to notice the change in Rose's behavior. She could sense the growing distance between Rose and her father, Peter, who seemed more concerned about his daughter than ever before. Jennifer had always been envious of Rose's grace, her kindness, and especially her father's unwavering love. But with Rose's health declining, Jennifer began to feel a strange, wicked sense of power. Could this be her chance? Jennifer's mind started to twist with possibilities. What if Rose's decline wasn't just physical? What if it was permanent? The idea of finally stepping into the role of the adored daughter, the one who was always overshadowed, excited her. She began to subtly manipulate situations, playing the concerned, supportive daughter to Peter, all the while relishing in the fact that she was finally being noticed by him. But Stanley, despite his busy medical career and growing wealth, couldn't ignore the changes he saw in Rose. He had fallen in love with her, her intelligence, her beauty, and her heart. But something was wrong. Rose was no longer the vibrant woman he had once known. She had become quieter, more withdrawn, and increasingly distant. He had tried calling, texting, even showing up at her internship, but she always made excuses, claiming she was too busy. His heart ached at the sight of her growing distance. On one evening, when the frustration had become too much, Stanley decided to confront her. He couldn't stand the distance between them any longer. He showed up at the hospital where Rose worked, catching her just as she was about to leave for the day. "Rose," Stanley called softly as he approached her. She looked up, and the familiar spark he once saw in her eyes seemed dimmer than ever. "Stanley," she whispered, her voice sounding hoarse, as if she had been holding back tears for days. I didn't expect you." Stanley's heart dropped. "Rose, what's going on? You've been avoiding me. I can't keep pretending everything is fine when I know it's not. You're different. You're not the woman I fell in love with." Rose's eyes welled with tears, but she quickly wiped them away. "I'm sorry, Stanley," she said, her voice shaking. "I don't know what's happening to me. Everything feels wrong. I feel like I'm losing myself, and I don't want you to see me like this." Stanley reached out and gently touched her arm. "Rose, I don't care what's going on. I love you, and I'm not going to walk away just because things are hard. We'll get through this together. Whatever it is, we can fight it." But Rose pulled away, her voice breaking. "No, Stanley. I don't want you to stay out of pity. I don't want to be someone who drags you down." Stanley's heart clenched in his chest. "It's not pity, Rose. It's love. You're not dragging me down. But I can't do this if you keep pushing me away." Rose swallowed hard, the battle inside her growing stronger. She could feel the darkness closing in on her, and for the first time, she wasn't sure if she could escape it. At that moment, a shadow crossed the doorframe. Agnes stood there, watching them from the hallway. Her eyes glinted with satisfaction as she saw the pain in Stanley's eyes. She knew this was her moment. Stanley turned to see Agnes standing there, a calculated smile on her face. "Oh, Stanley," Agnes said, walking into the room. "I see you're trying to fix Rose. But some things can't be fixed, no matter how hard you try. It's just the way things are. She's not the woman you think she is." Stanley's eyes narrowed, confused. "What are you talking about, Agnes?" Agnes stepped closer, lowering her voice so only Stanley could hear. "Rose, she's changed. She's not as perfect as you think. I think it's time you saw her for who she really is." Stanley stared at her, a chill running down his spine. What did Agnes mean by that? Meanwhile, back at the village, the chief priestess watched the magic she had cast unfold. She felt a twinge of guilt as she watched the life of the young woman deteriorate. Agnes' request had been clear, but the consequences were becoming more profound than she had anticipated. Little did Agnes know, magic was never as simple as she thought. The price of what she had done was just beginning to show, and not even she would be prepared for the aftermath. The days after Stanley's confrontation with Rose were heavy. Rose's health seemed to worsen as time passed, and no matter how much she tried to hide it, it was obvious to everyone around her. Her friends at the hospital noticed her slow decline, her loss of confidence, her exhaustion, the way her eyes seemed to lose their spark. Stanley, too, noticed. But even though he wanted to be there for her, Rose pushed him further away. Meanwhile, Agnes' plan was slowly unfolding exactly how she had hoped, or so she thought. She watched with hidden satisfaction as Stanley grew confused and frustrated with Rose's strange behavior. Agnes had successfully poisoned Rose's well, casting doubt in Stanley's mind. She was sure that her daughter, Jennifer, would finally have the chance she'd been waiting for. But as Rose's condition grew worse, something strange began to happen. Peter, Rose's father, noticed too. As a father, he had always been protective of his daughter, but he had never truly understood the depth of Agnes' hatred for Rose. In his heart, he had always hoped that time would heal the strained relationship between Agnes and Rose. But this time, something felt off. The change in Rose wasn't natural. And when he found out about the subtle manipulations Agnes had been making behind the scenes, he was furious. One evening, as the family sat in the living room, Peter confronted Agnes. The weight of his disappointment in her was palpable. "Agnes, what have you done?" he asked, his voice low but full of rage. Agnes looked up, feigning innocence. "What are you talking about, Peter? I haven't done anything." "Don't lie to me," Peter said, his voice rising. "I know what you've been doing. I know you've been behind all of this. You've poisoned Rose's food, haven't you? You've done something to make her sick. I've seen the change in her, and it's all because of you." Agnes' heart raced. She hadn't expected Peter to confront her like this, especially not with such clarity. But instead of backing down, she stood her ground. "Rose was never meant to be here," she spat, her anger bubbling over. "She's taken everything from Jennifer. She's the one who always gets all the attention, all the love. Jennifer deserves better. She deserves Stanley. But Rose was always the perfect little angel, wasn't she? So perfect, so loved. She's never had to struggle, and I'm tired of it." Peter's face went pale, and the truth of Agnes' words stung like 1,000 needles. "You've hated her all this time, haven't you? You've hated her because she's a reminder of everything you can't control. And now, you've gone so far as to destroy her." The silence in the room was deafening. Agnes stood there, her hands trembling. She had never felt more exposed in her life. But Peter wasn't done. His voice cracked with emotion as he continued. "I loved you, Agnes. But I can't stand by and let you hurt my daughter. You've destroyed this family with your jealousy. And now, you're going to face the consequences of your actions." Peter turned away from Agnes, the pain in his eyes too much to bear. He walked to Rose's room, where she was lying in bed, looking pale and fragile. She looked up as he entered, a faint smile crossing her lips. "Dad, I'm sorry. I don't know what's happening to me," Rose whispered, her voice barely audible. Peter knelt beside her, taking her hand gently in his. "Sweetheart, you're not to blame for any of this. Your mother, she's been doing terrible things. But I promise you, I'm going to make this right." As Peter and Rose shared a quiet moment, Agnes stood in the living room, trembling with fear and guilt. She had ruined everything, and now it was too late to undo the damage she had caused. The realization hit her like a heavy blow, and for the first time, she understood the true cost of her actions. The next day, Peter went to the village. He found the chief priestess who had worked with Agnes, and he demanded to know what had been done to his daughter. The priestess, who had seen the evil magic Agnes had used, reluctantly revealed the truth. Agnes had paid to have a curse placed on Rose, intending to ruin her life. The priestess, understanding the depth of Agnes' sin, agreed to help Peter. She prepared a ritual to lift the curse, using her ancient knowledge of cleansing magic to undo the damage that had been done. As she performed the ritual, a wave of energy seemed to pulse through the room, and Peter felt a weight lift from his shoulders. Rose, in her room, felt a sudden warmth spread through her body, as if the darkness that had consumed her for weeks was finally beginning to lift. Her mind cleared, and for the first time in days, she felt a glimmer of hope. Over the next few days, Rose's health began to improve. The fog in her mind lifted, and she felt stronger with every passing hour. She knew something had changed, but she didn't fully understand it. It wasn't until Peter sat down with her that he revealed everything. "Rose, it was your stepmother. She did this to you," he said, his voice heavy with sorrow. Rose's heart shattered. She couldn't believe that the woman who had raised her, the woman who had been part of her life for so long, could have done something so horrible. But deep down, she knew it was true. Agnes, once the center of their family, was now the outcast. Peter, finally seeing the true nature of his wife's heart, made the painful decision to ask her to leave the family home. She had destroyed their bond, hurt their daughter, and nearly ruined everything Peter held dear. In the end, Agnes was left with nothing but the consequences of her actions. She tried to fight back, to make Peter see reason, but the damage was done. Her jealousy, her hate, her selfishness, these were the things that had consumed her, and now, they had left her alone. As for Rose and Peter, they slowly began to rebuild their relationship. Rose, still struggling with the pain of what had happened, found solace in her father's unwavering support. Together, they healed, both emotionally and physically. And as for Stanley, he never wavered in his love for Rose. When he learned of the full extent of Agnes' betrayal, he promised Rose that no matter what, they would face the future together. Moral of the story: Jealousy and hate can destroy relationships and families. No matter how much one tries to hide their bitterness, it will eventually reveal itself in the worst possible way. True love, however, is built on trust, respect, and understanding, not manipulation or selfishness. Agnes' punishment was the loss of everything she held dear, the family she tried to control, the love she thought she deserved, and the peace she could never find. In the end, her own bitterness was the cause of her downfall, teaching us all that the only way to truly find happiness is through love, kindness, and selflessness. The end. Thank you for watching this video.